The day before yesterday, my best friend called and said the small umbrella she took from my house was really useful and that she used it all night. She asked me to help her order a few more boxes. I casually placed the order for her, but forgot to change the address. Looking at the profile picture of the Alaskan Malamute on my phone screen, I fell into deep thought. Are you there? I have a package delivered to the express cabinet downstairs at your place. A couple of minutes later, the other side replied, "It will arrive in 10 minutes. I was stunned for a while, then immediately reminded, "Just bring it over. No need to help me unpack." The other side showed that they were typing but did not reply again. I sent a message to my best friend, the big grudge. "You can use it again tonight." Time passed quickly, and the doorbell rang 3 times. I was wearing a camisole loungewear, casually picked up a shawl from the sofa, and went to open the door. Gavin stood at the door, his gaze scrutinizing me. "Sienna, why are you in such a hurry?" I looked at the bag hooked on his finger and thought to myself, this is bad. How did he still open the package? Weren't you always annoyed when I brought the packages home to open? While Gavin was washing his hands, he casually chatted with me. It's different now. I can't just explain to him that even though I didn't use this, you still can't open it. The air conditioning indoors was strong, but Gavin said the elevator was broken and he had climbed up the stairs, asking me to find a towel for him to wipe his sweat. I casually glanced at his back. Under the soaked shirt, the inverted triangle shape of his body was fully revealed, and his beautiful lat muscles were faintly visible. I couldn't help but drink a few more sips of water and looked away. Gavin is indeed handsome. But I broke up with him because he was too obsessed with work. Not only did he not have time to spend with me, but when we finally met, a sister of his kept calling him. I remember that Gavin was clearly an only child. When I asked him where this sister came from, he wouldn't say. While I buried my head in work with the lights off, he kept coming up with all sorts of tricks. In the end, I really couldn't take it anymore, and when he handed me my underwear afterward, I suggested breaking up. Gavin sat on the edge of the bed, buttoning his shirt with one hand and lighting a cigarette with the other, his movements fluid, without even turning to look at me.
Done.
Just one word. We broke up. Gavin is simply a jerk, and I don't even know what I'm holding on to. Do you need to take a shower first? My thoughts were pulled back as Gavin leaned against the bathroom door frame, his bangs damp, his gaze burning as he looked at me. He slightly lifted his chin, indicating the direction of the living room. Still on the sofa. Why is this person talking so strangely? I hesitated and sat down on the sofa. Gavin seemed to be staring at me. Why did he bring up the topic of taking a shower with his ex-girlfriend? Just thinking about it makes me feel sick. I was so embarrassed that I wanted to get up and escape. Let's go eat, it's getting late. Gavin's arms suddenly reached over and pulled me into his embrace. I was wearing a home camisole and had just thrown on a shawl when I opened the door for him. As he tugged, the shawl brushed against his arm and fell to the ground. His chin rested in the hollow of my shoulder, devoid of any intimacy. The warm breath from his nose slipped into my ear, stirring a faint tickle. Isn't it what you said? I can use it again tonight. I froze, instantly realizing that the message was sent to the wrong person. It's all my best friend's fault. Her profile picture is also an Alaskan. Gavin lowered his head, his slightly dry lips gently brushed against my cheek, slowly moving to my earlobe. A touch as light as a drop of water, which ultimately transformed into a long and tender kiss. I can endure his ease and dominance, or his ability to turn the tide effortlessly, but I truly cannot bear such a silent and vulnerable softness. This is a weakness of girls, born with an innate capacity for empathy. I pushed him away with a flushed face. You probably misunderstood. I just finished using it the day before yesterday and wanted to buy it. Gavin didn't listen to me seriously, only focused on rubbing his nose against my cheek. I understand your subtle expression, so let's use it tonight. So, are we getting back together now? I was stunned. Getting back together with him? I really hadn't considered it. But if I were to say I wanted to, I just thought of it. Gavin sat up, propping one leg up and reached back to hold me. Suddenly, I really want to eat tofu, especially that kind that is white, tender, and smooth. The overly obvious double entendre, As soon as his last word fell, he lowered his head, one hand seeking a gap to probe into. His slightly dry lips continuously teased the skin on my neck. I was kissed so intensely that my toes curled, and my slipper slipped off my foot with a loud smack. I only felt thirsty, as if I were lacking oxygen, unconsciously tilting my head back. If it weren't for the phone beside me ringing at an inopportune moment, it was easy to imagine how things would have developed next. The call was from an unfamiliar number. "Miss Sienna, have you prepared everything? If it's convenient, I'll come over tonight." When Gavin turned on the speakerphone, he only heard 6 words for tonight. "Not good, don't come yet. Don't ruin my good thing." After hanging up the phone, I realized the person behind me had stopped moving. Gavin's brows furrowed noticeably, and his hands loosened slightly. I still wanted to lean in and kiss him. Who was the person on the phone? He pressed his 2 fingers against my forehead. Before we broke up, I remember there was still a box in the bedside table. I spread my hands and spoke frankly. It doesn't matter who that person is. The remaining box was used up the day before yesterday, otherwise, why would I need to buy more? The sound of water splashing in the bathroom. Gavin suddenly pushed me aside to take a shower, and it took him a long time to come out. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling window on the balcony, his beautiful wheat-colored skin glowing softly in the sunlight, his half-closed eyes looking languid. "Are you leaving?" I suddenly don't understand his thoughts again. "Weren't you just going to be with me?" Gavin coldly raised his eyes. "What do you think?" He seems to be angry. But I haven't offended him. After hesitating for a moment, I lowered my head to scroll through short videos. That number just called again. The other party said they were introduced by a close friend to look at the house. I casually replied, "Okay, then come tonight." "Yes, everything is ready." I hung up the phone. I didn't know when, but Gavin was standing in front of me, looking at me with disappointment in his eyes. "Why have you become like this? How am I like this?" It's so baffling. Before leaving, Gavin lit a cigarette and turned to look at me. "Sienna, you should find someone to settle down with." He exhaled smoke, a half-smile on his lips, and said, "After all, we are still friends." I understood his meaning and, unwilling to back down, retorted, "Are you saying you can't control your lower half when it comes to your friends?" Gavin was choked by me. His face was gloomy as he opened the door and suddenly stopped in his tracks. The male tenant who was about to knock on the door also looked taken aback. "Gavin, what are you doing here?" "Ryan?" Gavin frowned. "Do you know each other?" "It's like this. I'm currently interning at the company, and Gavin is my boss. Gavin is a rising star in technology, I know that. I just didn't expect that the tenant my best friend introduced to me would actually be Gavin's intern. Damn it, this entangled fate that can't be cut off." Ryan looked at me and asked Gavin, "Gavin, do you guys know each other?" Gavin maintained a strange silence. I answered for him, "You guys, Gavin does odd jobs on the side. He just helped me deliver something, and I only invited him in for a drink of water." Gavin's expression grew even darker. He asked Ryan, "Was it you who called her twice tonight?" Ryan nodded. "Just because you kept calling, she didn't answer me. Now the order is delayed and money is being deducted. You two figure it out." After Gavin finished speaking, he quickly turned and ran away, leaving the two of us stunned in place. The clear-headed, foolish male college student had no doubts at all. He simply thought his boss was experiencing life. After this incident, I have gained a certain understanding of Ryan, the male tenant. A recent college graduate, he is upright in thought and loves cleanliness, young and full of energy. He was also very satisfied with the location of my house in terms of transportation. The two hit it off immediately, and the rental contract was signed that very night. At night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. I guess that Gavin must have blocked me, so I sent him some strange messages on WeChat. Gavin probably can't sleep either, right? Is he itching to eat tofu, but why did he back out at the last minute? The attached image is a selfie of me wearing a tank top. Message sent. Sent successfully? I was taken aback for a moment and retracted it immediately. Just now, I was still in the blocked state, and this person added me as a friend again. I wonder if he saw it? I tentatively probed. "I just wanted to tell you, you left your belt at my place." Messages from Gavin kept popping up.
I saw it.
I won't come over this late. Don't talk to me like this in the future. Ryan is my employee. It's better if he doesn't see it. Is he trying to be a saint after his impulsiveness, wanting nothing? His tone is so indifferent. And so what if he's his employee? Ryan had just finished tidying up the room, and the skewers and beer he ordered had arrived, calling me to eat together. I messaged Gavin. Got it, Ryan and I are having a drink, not chatting with you anymore. One hand holding skewers and the other drinking beer, unable to reply to messages. After finishing the late-night snack, it was almost midnight. I just saw the message Gavin sent 2 hours ago. Are you in the living room? Or in the room? There's a small umbrella I stuffed into the gap of the sofa today, so be careful. My ex-husband, you're actually quite nice thinking of things like this for me. I replied directly. Don't worry, I will hide it well so he won't find out. It shows typing. On the other side. After inputting for a long time, just when I thought Gavin had fallen asleep unexpectedly, he called me on a video call. I had just gotten up from the toilet and was washing my hands at the faucet. After washing my hands, I showed a difficult expression. My legs are so sore. Leaning against the sink, I pounded my legs. I should have known not to squat for so long just now. Gavin stared at me intently, his gaze extremely sharp. How long did it last for your legs to feel this sore? Why don't you come out now and have another go with me? I looked at the time. It was almost 1 o'clock. Still going out at midnight with my ex-boyfriend to eat skewers and drink beer? No way. Ryan made sure I was full. Gavin sat in the single armchair, let out a long sigh, and leaned his neck back.
Can he satisfy you?
Sienna, you really are something. I could see his fair neck as I looked up, his Adam's apple slightly rolling as he spoke, and beside it, there was a small light brown mole. Having it in such a position gave off an excessive sense of restraint, but perhaps Gavin was not a restrained person at all. I didn't really listen to what he was saying. I just silently took a screenshot. Sienna, aren't you tired and going to sleep? Ryan appeared from behind at some point, his gaze fixed on my phone screen. It's nothing. I hurriedly hung up the phone, feeling guilty. Living with a male college student who has just entered society, I still need to set a good example. Gavin was right to remind me. Some things need to be tidied up. We can't let the young ones see them and think that we adults lack restraint. Ryan leaned against the door with his arms crossed, his gaze full of interest. I saw it, Sienna. Why don't you find a boyfriend? Instead of looking at borderline male images late at night. I shook the water off my hands. He's not a borderline guy. He is your boss. Little brat knows nothing at all. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Is he your boyfriend? No, just a regular friend. I walked past him. Ryan turned his head to let me through. What kind of friend are you? You're just one step away from drooling at the screen. He speaks without restraint. Could he be a friends with benefits? You little brat, why don't you learn something good? He suddenly grabbed my sleeve and blinked. If you really need something, why not come to me? The classmates I know are all athletic students over 180 centimeters, young, handsome, and strong. Introducing a successful 2-month rent waiver. Thank you for your kindness, but I must decline. I really have no thoughts about young male college students. Aren't older men more charming? I was just caught by your intern and they lectured me. I'm lying in bed now. Should I continue the video? I'm lying on the bed messaging Gavin. Because of me, did he say you? It's fine anyway, he didn't notice it was you. My enthusiasm was doused with cold water. No matter what pictures or messages I send, Gavin no longer replies to me. I'm sulking at my phone. A few days later, Ryan became busy, leaving early and returning late every day, with working until 1 a.m. becoming the norm. I indirectly asked him, does your boss work overtime with you? Gavin not only joined but also specifically kept an eye on me, as if he didn't trust me. Ryan was already feeling anxious from exhaustion. As a kind landlord, I certainly couldn't bear to see him exploited by the capitalists. I sent a WeChat message to Gavin, helping Ryan fabricate a non-existent girlfriend. Gavin, it's one thing for you to be single and busy with work, but you should at least consider the interns who have girlfriends. Gavin is very indifferent. If his abilities are lacking, he needs to learn more. 2 minutes later, Gavin sent another message. I wasn't deliberately targeting him. On second thought, Gavin has always been like this. He demands perfection in his work and spares no effort in nurturing promising subordinates. I understand. Then I'll comfort Ryan. Gavin, whatever you want. A minute later, he blocked me again. The next morning, I was still at home sleeping soundly. Ryan called me. Sienna, I need your help urgently. My little brother's fate is in your hands. When I asked, I found out. Ryan left his internship conversion report at home, and the USB drive was also at home. Just at this moment, he had to accompany a client and couldn't get away at all. Then I'll bring it over and call you when I arrive. Before leaving, I stood in front of the mirror, examining my face. I remember what my best friend said, that my skin is fair and delicate, but it lacks any color. She told me to find a man to sleep with for a good rest to improve my complexion.
Who can I find to sleep with?
After arriving at Ryan's company, I had no idea what his situation was. I made more than a dozen calls, but he didn't answer. I stood in the elevator, helplessly rubbing my forehead. If it really doesn't work out, should I find Gavin? I also made an appointment with my best friend to get our nails done later. The elevator doors slowly opened, and a group of people surged in, pushing me into the back corner. The girl with the high ponytail beside me was gossiping with a colleague. When Gavin scolds someone with a cold face, his gaze seems to be frozen. Just one glance, and you'll have nightmares all night. If I were Ryan, I would be trembling right after being scolded. Now I finally understand why Gavin doesn't have a girlfriend. No wonder I said I couldn't get in touch with anyone. It turns out that Ryan, this workplace rookie, is being scolded. But is Gavin really that terrifying in their eyes? The elevator slowly stopped on the 16th floor. I originally wanted to get out of the elevator with the girl with the high ponytail. Then I saw Gavin walking towards us. The people in the elevator were all pushing and shoving to get out. Only I stood still. He was wearing a black shirt today, making him appear especially aloof and austere. I looked at him, momentarily lost in thought. Until the elevator doors closed, there were only the two of us in the cramped space. Sienna, I haven't called you to see others either. The man's tone was filled with mockery. Is there a hidden meaning? Last time at my place, on the sofa, we didn't get to watch it. Can we continue watching? Gavin's eyes narrowed slightly. I could feel his body tense up unconsciously. Suddenly, I felt a surge of playfulness. Gavin, ever since I couldn't see you last time, I haven't been able to think of tea or food. I feel unwell all over. What do you think I should do? I gazed at Gavin and smiled innocently. He grabbed my restless hand that was wandering between his legs and let out a deep breath. Sure, you can look anytime you want. I just don't know if it's convenient for you to have a Ryan at home. I thought to myself, what if this kid comes home from work and ruins my good fortune? We can book a hotel. Gavin furrowed his brows, looking somewhat annoyed. Am I only worthy of staying in a hotel? I didn't quite understand where his annoyance was coming from. Gavin has already gone to press the elevator button. I hesitated and asked him, don't you like the hotel? Then let's go to a guest house, preferably one by the sea.
How about that?
He looked up at me, his gaze icy. No need, I'm not that desperate. The elevator door closed. I was silent for a long time. What did Gavin mean by that? He doesn't like hotels and doesn't go to guest houses. Does he want me to go to his house? It's not impossible. Why did he have to be so angry and beat around the bush? I was ready to directly ask Gavin what being a masochist really means, only to find out I had been blocked again. What a nerve. He blocked his ex-girlfriend at the slightest disagreement. No wonder he doesn't have a girlfriend. Ryan finished work normally today. That's rare. Gavin showed great kindness and actually let me leave work early to go home and accompany my girlfriend. I am watering the flowers and weeding on the balcony. Isn't that just what you want? But I don't have a girlfriend. What if Gavin finds out? Ryan lay on the sofa, comforting himself. It doesn't matter if I'm discovered. At least I'm happy now. If I keep working overtime like this, I'll be too exhausted to find a girlfriend. So just play the role of someone who has a girlfriend well. No one answered me. Ryan is already asleep. I took a sheet to cover him and sat down on the single sofa, casually scrolling through my phone. My best friend called me, saying she ran into Gavin outside, and he brought a girl with him, urging me to come over quickly. Only upon arriving did I realize that this place was a private investment bar owned by Gavin. There were 3 men and 3 women present. Besides my best friend and her boyfriend, there was a girl with a gentle and delicate appearance, and a handsome guy who only had eyes for her. I didn't know him, but I felt a bit puzzled. As soon as I appeared, she kept sizing me up. Gavin personally called for the wine, the ace of spades, all charged to his account as the big boss. Everyone sat around a round table, with Gavin as the host. He didn't ask me how I got here, just introduced the beautiful girl to everyone, saying, "This is my half-sister Bella, and this is her boyfriend UJ. They are getting married next Monday, let's toast to them." I reacted immediately. Isn't Bella the same person Gavin called me as soon as he met me? Was she really his sister? So I wrongly blamed him? I instinctively looked across, and Gavin happened to be looking at me too. The emotions surged in his pitch-black eyes, yet they were all suppressed, like a frozen sea. As we locked eyes again, the convergence of our gazes became an axe striking at the frozen ocean of our hearts. As the wine flowed, the 4 of us, who were couples, gradually moved to the corners. Gavin and I, knowing full well, felt a stir of excitement. After a while, Gavin extinguished the cigarette butt in the ashtray, a barely noticeable smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. He stood up and took the initiative to sit beside me. I looked up at him, a bit at a loss, chatting in a disorganized manner. "Why don't you explain that Bella is your half-sister? If we had known earlier, would we have not broken up? After all, it was because of these misunderstandings that we decided to part ways." As soon as I finished speaking, Ryan's call came in. "Sienna, why haven't I seen you since I woke up? It's late at night, where have you been?" I looked at Gavin, and he turned his head, avoiding my gaze. "Never mind. I'll be outside, taking a walk. You should sleep first, no need to wait for me." After the call ended, I don't know if it's just my illusion, but the atmosphere that had just heated up with ambiguity vanished completely. Gavin was silent for a while and finally said, "Do you want me to take you home?" The car door closed, blocking the cool night breeze outside. Gavin held a cigarette in his mouth, one hand on the steering wheel and the other reaching for the engine start button. Just as we were about to leave, I suddenly remembered that both of us had been drinking. I admit that alcohol makes people lose control and become more sensitive. So without further ado, I reached out to grab Gavin's right hand, which was reaching for a cigarette. He immediately switched hands to grab the cigarette. "Sienna, stop messing around." I grabbed Gavin's right wrist, lifted his hand, and slightly lowered my head to touch my cheek against the back of his hand. My cheeks were burning, while the skin on the back of his hand was slightly cool. This action, clearly imbued with reverence and submission, left Gavin stunned. He remained silent, his gaze growing darker and more profound. With a sudden force, he broke free from my fingers and wrapped his arm around my shoulder. "Be good, open your mouth." My gaze was somewhat dazed, but I obediently parted my lips slightly. A deep kiss filled with the mingling sense of smoke and alcohol. After a long while, Gavin finally let go. I feel a sense of dizziness. In a place where no one can see, the cool breath of him fills my mouth with each inhale. Gavin tilted his head back, leaning against the seat, his eyes half closed, and sighed. "Sienna, either fulfill me today or just end me." I murmured, "I haven't had enough fun yet. How could I bear to end you?" He suddenly pulled me close, lowered his head, and bit down directly on my freshly broken lip, his voice deep and somewhat hoarse. "That is, I will die on you even if I have to die." What happened next can be said to have come naturally. The moment I stepped into the hotel room, Gavin didn't even bother to turn on the lights. He wrapped his arms around my waist and pushed me against the tall cabinet by the entrance, kissing me with a hint of intensity. Kicking off his shoes, he reached up to press the switch, lifted me up, and walked inside, accompanied by kisses and mutual exploration. Clothes were shed one by one, like scattered evidence of our transgressions. We were overly eager, losing all sense of order, rushing headlong into the main event. In the end, we tangled with each other for 3 hours, over and over again. Gavin glanced at the time, his expression filled with contentment and satisfaction, and lowered his head to end this affair with a kiss. "Do you want to wake up before you leave? Or should I take you back now?" I was a bit dazed and looked up at him. Gavin was looking down at me, his expression serious and cautious. He was definitely not joking. I felt a hollow emptiness inside. Everything that should be done and shouldn't be done was done, and this time he didn't mention getting back together even once. Instead, he asked if I wanted to go home right away. What did he take me for? My mind is in chaos, and I feel very resistant, but I still stubbornly ask him, "So, what do we call our relationship now?" Gavin was silent for a moment. "That depends on your choice." All right, you jerk." Gavin wanted to touch my hair again. I immediately pushed him away coldly and picked up the scattered clothes. "I'm going back now," he pleaded. "Can't you take a nap before you leave?" Is he really trying to sound pitiful and lost? I turned my head and shot him a glare. What kind of relationship do we have? Do you expect me to stay and sleep with you again? Gavin looked utterly incredulous, then finally gave a self-deprecating smile. "You're right, there's no relationship between us. You're not my girlfriend." I returned home, but I couldn't sleep. I really can't understand. Gavin's actions make me feel that he still loves me. But why doesn't he mention getting back together? He said it depends on my choice? Could it be that he's hinting I should take the initiative? After thinking it over, I decided to be a brave person and take the initiative. Gavin was one step ahead of me and sent a little essay. The gist was, he was very sorry for what happened tonight. He promised me anything I wanted, while also deciding not to disturb my peaceful life anymore, allowing me to cherish Ryan well. Cherish Ryan well? What's wrong with him? I was speechless. Why bring an outsider into this? He's just my tenant. What do you want me to cherish? The message didn't go out. Sure enough, I was blocked again. I was so frustrated that I decided to just delete this account. It was the weekend at home when Ryan said he had successfully become a permanent employee. Gavin wanted to throw him a welcome party. Friends or family could come along, and he asked if I wanted to go. I initially thought about not going to avoid the awkwardness of seeing each other. Gavin definitely wouldn't be happy about it either. But then I thought, why should it always be his decision? He can choose to see me or not, to delete or block me at will. This time, I would not give him what he wanted. At Ryan's welcome party, many people came, but I was the only female friend he brought along. Plus, with the image Ryan had built at the company as a devoted boyfriend, it was inevitable that someone would tease him. "Ryan, you lucky guy. Your girlfriend is so beautiful. No wonder Gavin lets you leave work early to be with her." Everyone looked at me sitting next to Ryan. Then let's thank Gavin for his understanding. I stood up, picked up a glass of wine, and handed it to Gavin, asking him to take care of Ryan from now on. He tightened his jaw, took the wine, and downed it in one go. "Miss Sienna is being polite." Gavin's gaze lightly fell on the chopsticks Ryan was using to serve me food, then shifted away. At the table, everyone was chatting excitedly about gossip. When the topic of love came up, someone suddenly mentioned, "Do you still have feelings for an ex after a long separation?" I have a friend who broke up with his ex-girlfriend almost 2 years ago, but recently they moved in together and got back together. But when we asked him, he said they were just ordinary friends. It must be that both sides are getting what they need. Otherwise, it's just your friend wanting to take advantage without paying, and that's it. The speaker is indifferent, but the listener is attentive. I cursed and stood up. I felt deeply about it, so I couldn't control my emotions. The onlookers all turned to me, signaling for me to continue. Ryan looked at me anxiously. "Sienna, you don't seem to be in a good mood." No kidding, who feels good when someone is taking advantage of their emotions? But now is not the time to explode. I could only keep my mouth shut, and after finishing a large plate of crayfish by myself, I ordered 2 cups of fruit wine. Only then did I feel something was off in my lower abdomen. "Gavin, will you still think about your ex-girlfriend?" Some girls can't help but gossip. Below, people are discussing. "Definitely not. Gavin is a heartless person. When he scolds someone, it's super scary. Even girls are afraid. I've never heard that Gavin has dated anyone or had an ex-girlfriend. Gavin seemed to be deep in thought, not responding to her, occasionally glancing in my direction. The pain was inescapably entwined with a sinking feeling in my lower abdomen. Damn it, this familiar prelude. It seems my period has come early. The pain makes me tear up. I want Ryan to take me home to lie down, but he is currently surrounded by colleagues drinking. Gavin glanced at me again, and I forced back the pain, lowering my head to avoid him. No, I had to go to the bathroom right away. Over there, Ryan was still being teased by his colleagues, drinking and being asked how he managed to win me over. While no one was paying attention, I quietly left my seat and walked out of the room to rummage through my bag. Sienna, did you cry because of me? I turned my head, tears still fresh on my face, looking blankly at Gavin, who had appeared behind me at some point. He was slightly taken aback. You're really crying. Don't think too much. What we have is definitely not just a mutual benefit, and I never intended to take advantage of you. Then why do you treat me this way and that, yet don't want to get back together? In the end, it just means he doesn't love me that much. I finally asked the question that had been on my mind all along. Gavin was silent for a long time. Finally, I clenched my fist against my lips, as if I had made a significant decision. Sienna, if my withdrawal makes you question my love for you, then I have decided not to care about your issues anymore. I blinked at him, feeling both angry and amused. You don't mind that you took advantage of me? You coaxed and deceived me, then left me high and dry and blocked me. You're such a jerk. Gavin's eyes widened slightly. Babe, you can't blame it all on me. Under the warm yellow light, his sharp features were softened a bit. He looked somewhat wronged. I didn't mean to make you cry. I didn't cry. I wiped my face. It's just that I got my period and didn't bring any sanitary pads, and my stomach hurts from overeating. Gavin suddenly became serious. He doesn't care about you at all. I remember you only came on the 21st, right? Why are you here early? Is it because you stay up late every night? Your schedule is irregular and you love to drink cold drinks. Gavin, don't keep talking. With a surge of heat, I stepped forward and covered his mouth. Gavin couldn't help but pinch my face again. You still haven't said whether you're willing or not. He pulled me into his arms and wanted to kiss my face again. I'm willing. How could I not be willing, Gavin? I really want to get back together. So hurry and take me back. There was no wind outside, and the air was cold. Gavin drove smoothly and quickly to the 24-hour convenience store. He bought a pack of sanitary pads and wet wipes and handed them to me. I got out of the car and used the store's restroom. Having spent a bit too long in the restroom, I came out to see Gavin leaning against the old gray concrete building waiting for me. Under the flickering yellow light, he wore a gray suit over his shirt, his gaze cool yet devoid of any impatience. He said, Sienna, I feel so unreal. I always have to do something to seize the moment and win your heart. So, Gavin took me back to his home. The flat had a wide view of the night scene, with neon lights shimmering. I finished my hot shower and Gavin thoughtfully helped me dry my hair, then carried me to bed, fed me brown sugar water, and handed me a hot water bottle. Seeing me lying down with a contented expression, he finally went to take a shower, saying, Sienna, I'll be quick. Wait for me to hold you and sleep. I promised him with my words. As soon as Gavin entered the bathroom, I immediately turned over, closed my eyes, and buried myself in his blanket. It smells so good. Gavin's bedding gives me a novel olfactory experience. The scent might be a mix of cotton, white musk, and bergamot. I inexplicably thought of a perfume by Juliet Has a Gun. Is it called Secret Desire? I'll ask him about it later. My eyelids are getting heavier. A night without dreams. When I groggily opened my eyes, I judged that it might already be morning from the faint light coming through the gap in the blackout curtains. But the eyelids were still heavy, unable to stay open for long before closing again, hearing the distant, faint sound of water. After a while, I felt a faintly damp breath draw near, like the mist that envelopes you when you step outside in the morning. I struggled to open my eyes. At the end of my vision was a handsome face, looking at me as if assessing whether I was truly awake or not. When he saw me open my eyes, Gavin smiled at me with a tender affection. With a crisp click, he fastened the metal watch strap, and then his hand came over to touch my face. "You keep sleeping," he said. "I've asked the aunt to prepare some food. I'll go to the office to handle some matters and be back home to keep you company by noon." Gavin adjusted his tie again, finally folding down his collar, leaning over to kiss me. "He would stay here for the next few days, okay? I'll take care of you." I reached out to touch his face, then his Adam's apple. "Sure, it's a pity that I can only see and touch, but I can still kiss." Gavin raised an eyebrow and winked at me. "A kiss from above?" Gavin fell silent. Just when the two were lost in their kiss, Ryan called. "Sienna, Gavin hasn't done anything to you, has he?" Gavin suddenly opened his eyes. He got up from me, loosened the tie he had just tied, and made a shushing gesture towards me. He looked as if he were facing a great enemy. "That night I got so drunk I couldn't think straight. Did Gavin drive you home? A colleague saw you both get into the same car after coming out of the restroom." "Yeah, we're still together now." As soon as the words were spoken, Gavin held my shoulders with both hands, visibly tense to the point that sweat beaded on his forehead. I pressed my lips together in silence, unable to understand or make sense of it. I replied to Ryan, saying I would talk to him when we met. Then I hung up the phone. Gavin has always seemed to resist Ryan knowing about our relationship. I always feel that something is off, but I can't quite figure it out. "Are you also putting on a facade in front of outsiders?" "What kind of facade?" "Of course, it's the persona of a hard-hearted, cold, and bad-tempered person, so that the employees maintain a sense of respect for you."
I never thought of it that way.
"Then what are you resisting? You seem afraid of the employees knowing about our relationship." "I'm only afraid that Ryan will find out, which would be bad for you." Gavin asked me incredulously again. "Aren't you afraid?" I really couldn't help but roll my eyes. Gavin was still chattering away. After spending some time together, I found that this kid is young and impulsive, unlike me who is mature and steady. "If he really wants to make a move, don't worry." Gavin's tone was firm. "I would let him fight. But the premise is, he absolutely cannot lay a finger on you." There was a kind of boldness in his tone, as if he would risk everything for his brother. I really can't believe it. The more we talk, the more ridiculous it gets. "Aren't we buddies?" "Why would Ryan hit you?" "Because we made him wear a green hat. Any man would find that unbearable." Gavin fell silent. I was left dumbfounded. Many images flashed through my mind. I squinted slightly. "You mean I cheated on Ryan?" "Of course, I have my responsibilities too. Knowing that you have a boyfriend, I still couldn't forget you and couldn't bring myself to cut ties completely." Gavin confessed to himself. "It was wrong of me to make Ryan work overtime. I just wanted to take advantage of the situation. I also realized that my behavior was quite foolish. You stop." I reached out and covered Gavin's mouth with my hand. I saw the confusion in his eyes. I bit my lip and looked up at him, wondering if it was possible that the girlfriend Ryan thought he had was actually me. Gavin looked at me with a complicated expression. It seemed he still didn't believe what I said. This kind of thing could only be confronted face to face. Otherwise, even if I jumped into the Yellow River, I wouldn't be able to clear my name. When I arrived home, Ryan was packing his luggage. Seeing Gavin come, he instead wanted to run. The three looked at each other. Ryan had a mournful expression. "Gavin, I don't have a girlfriend. I lied to everyone. I'm sorry for disappointing you." It turned out that Ryan got drunk at the welcome party that day. He accidentally let slip that he didn't have a girlfriend. Someone with ulterior motives recorded it on video and posted it in the work group. In the video, Ryan's face is flushed as he smiles at the camera. "Sienna? She's my landlord. I don't have a girlfriend at all. I just didn't want to work overtime, so I used this excuse to fool Gavin." As I let out a sigh of relief, I couldn't help but feel anxious for Ryan. Gavin, with a dark expression, turned off the video and looked at him coldly, his gaze sharp enough to cut, trying to slack off and using others as an excuse, distorting the facts. "If you had that much energy, you should have finished the work I assigned you last week. By the way, do you have a problem with me taking Sienna home? Are you worried about me?" calling early in the morning to ask. The truth is about to come to light. Ryan was frantically signaling me. I silently raised my hand. Gavin, this is also my fault for coming up with such a bad idea. Gavin clenched his fist and coughed lightly.
What did you call me?
I am not your Gavin, I am your boyfriend. Completely disregarding Ryan's life or death. I tugged at Gavin's arm. All right, boyfriend. I'm hungry, take me to eat something delicious. I leaned close to his ear. I want to eat you, is that okay? Gavin cleared his throat, his tone serious. Then let's go eat first. Looking back again at Ryan, who was pretending to be very busy. Ryan, pack your things up. You'll be back to work as usual tomorrow. I have an apartment near the company that I can rent to you, and the rent will be the same as now. Ryan nodded quickly. Gavin sat in the car, his head tilted back, pinching the bridge of his nose, and let out a long sigh. I can't believe I always thought I was the mistress. I leaned over and teased him with my arm. That Gavin's mistress is quite successful. I've completely fallen for you. Gavin let out a soft hum. Sienna, I never really thought about leaving you. The times I blocked you were just because I didn't want you to fall into the same dilemma as I did. Let's not talk about the past. His long fingers, carrying a hint of coolness, pinched my chin. Aren't you going to kiss me already? Gavin deliberately tilted his head slightly back, wearing a somewhat proud expression, just waiting for me to take the initiative. I stretched out my arms and wrapped them around Gavin's neck. My breath barely brushed against his lips before I immediately kissed his brow and eyes. I sincerely said, "Thank you, Gavin." The car was quiet for a long time, and we all tacitly stopped talking. I had long been aware that I often became enchanted by being alone with Gavin, that feeling of being isolated from the world. Love is an island where only two people can stand.